Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to Couch Conversations with the Doctors, where health is wealth. What night is it tonight? It is Monday night, and it is time for Couch Conversations with the Doctors, where health is wealth. As always, we're going to go around our table and we're going to introduce our esteemed colleagues that are here with us on this evening and some who are on the way. Want to say hey to the man who has the best art ever and hates accolades, but I think he is an artist in the closet. That's our very own Joe Harrington. Joe?
Thank you, Nikki, and thank you, and Congressman Davis, for providing this platform and giving an opportunity to sometimes speak our mind. And my name is Joe Harrington. I retired in 2017 from the Illinois Department of Public Health, where I was the regional health officer for Cook County and administrative law judge. I spent most of my career either in public health or healthcare, but also did a little work in mental health and education.
Outstanding. I want to say hey to my colleague who leaves me and goes and have fun in the sun. However, he's chilling with us on this evening. That's our very own Dr. Douglas Graham. Dr. Doug?
Thank you, Nikki. I'm a retired physician. I worked in the western suburbs for 30 years, and after retirement, I joined the congressman in his office. I'll tell you, it's a real change going from patient care to public policy. I'm glad I did. I'm going to try and answer your questions as best I can.
Outstanding. To the man who says I threaten him to be here every Monday night, but he is always on time. That's our very own Dr. James Miller. Dr. Miller?
Well, just want to say good evening to everybody, and thanks to Nikki and to Congressman Davis for this platform that we can come and, as Mr. Harrington says, sometimes speak our mind, but hopefully most of all to provide some um, insight and some help to those that are seeking help. And so, we're glad to be here. I'm a retired physician. I practiced internal medicine for about 40 years, retired in 2019. Um, though I retired from clinical medicine, still interested in healing the community, and healing take many forms. So I'll do what I can to try to heal. So we trying to heal tonight as well.
Outstanding. Well, we have a couple special guests that's here with us on this evening. To a young lady who is well versed in how we keep ourselves alive with that great stuff that we talk about at church, the blood of Jesus. Well, the blood that flows through our veins, that's our very own Shelly Mitchell. But now, Shelly was the only freshman on her varsity track team when she was in high school. Wonder how she's running around now. But she loves comedy because she met Bruce in the airport. And you all know Bruce is the one who says he inhaled Krispy Kreme donuts. Shelly, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Congressman Davis. It is truly a delight to be on this platform. So, as Nikki said, my name is Shelly Mitchell. I am a regional manager for donor recruitment for Versity Blood Center of Illinois. And so I'm happy to be on here to talk about the importance and the impact of donating blood, specifically in our communities of color. So, thank you. You're muted, Nikki.
There we go. Sorry. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shelly, for that great introduction. Well, we have another special guest that's here with us on this evening. Because of course you guys know last week Dr. Pete, last week we were spewing the Bible. And the congressman told us we needed to have a preacher here. So we got the right preacher, the bishop, the pastor of the Mercy Seat Missionary Baptist Church here with us, Pastor Lavelle Brown, Bishop Lavelle Brown. Bishop Brown.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be on.
Oh, and his fun fact is in his personal time, he really thinks he's an auto mechanic.
I'll address that one in terms of YouTube University has taught me everything that I know. Thank you again, Nikki, for allowing me to come on. I'm the pastor, like Nikki said, I'm the pastor of Mercy Baptist Church, one of the legendary churches on the west side of Chicago. Glad to be here, glad to be of assistance in whatever way I can. God bless each and every last one of you for everything that you do for our community, for your constituents, and for the city at large.
Thank you so very much. I want to say hey to Dorothy Murphy, who is here with us. She says, good evening to everyone. To that internal medicine doctor who's really an infectious disease specialist on the side. He just doesn't tell you. But he is a DJ by night and a physician by day. And that's a house DJ, that is. That's our very own Dr. Bonnie P. Thomas. Hey, Dr. P.
Hey, Nikki, thank you so much for you and the congressman for creating this forum. I'm happy to be with my esteemed colleagues, and I'm looking forward to a vibrant conversation to improve our health.
Outstanding. And to the man who makes this possible for us each and every Monday night, to the one that teaches us that true health is wealth, that's our very own Congressman of the Illinois 7th Congressional District, Congressman Danny K. Davis. Congressman?
Well, thank you very much, and thank you all. Especially do I want to thank Ms. Mitchell for being with us. At one time in my life, I used to have 5 friends. All 5 of them ran blood banks at the various hospitals. My real good buddy was a fellow named Judge Watkins, and Judge not only ran the blood bank at one of the hospitals, he also developed the med tech program at Malcolm X College. He was a medical technologist, and of course the other guy, Jake Starks. Jake and I had gone to the same university for undergraduate school, and Jacob ran the blood bank at the University of Illinois Hospital. And then another fellow, Hal, ran the blood bank at the Veterans Administration Hospital. And they were good buddies, and somehow or another, I kind of fell in with them. And I was the only person in the group who didn't work in a blood bank or had something to do with a blood bank. And several of them, practically all of them, have unfortunately passed away. But I keep their memories alive because Ernie Tolden worked at the Martin Luther King Health Center. He didn't run it, but he was one of the technicians there. It's good to see Dr. Brown. Thank you for being with us. I had a long and glorious relationship with the person who really put that church on the map, Reverend Amos Waller. And I was thinking about Dr. Waller because no matter what we were doing and whatever we had to eat, but I guess his wife had perfected a way of cooking salt pork. I don't care what we were having. And I had dinner with him at times. Nobody would be there but he and I and his wife. And we'd have all this stuff on the table. And he says, honey, could you bring me and the alderman a little salt pork? And I was thinking about that in terms of diabetes and salt pork and salt. But she had a way of cooking it that you really didn't taste the salt in it that much. I mean, seemed like she could take the salt out. And so even though I knew salt as off the menu, I ate it anyway because I figured if he could eat it, I could eat it. And we had a wonderful time. So it's good to have you here and good to invoke the memories of Dr. Amos Waller, great organizer, great soloist, great singer, always was out of the city almost every week somewhere doing revival, and took one of the old theaters and put a church in it. And we worshiped there for many, many, many years. So let's get it on. Enough said. Go ahead.
All right, I want to say hey to Sandale Scott, who is here with us. She says hello to Connie Taylor, who is here. She says hello, everyone, to Crystal Ewan, who is here, to Arlene Spencer, and Tyler Phillips, who is here, to Latrice Good and Demetrius Dykes, who is here with us, to Elaine Phillips, who is here with us, on today. To Janine Campbell, who is here with us, I want to say, hey, Janine. To Reverend Brooks, that's James Brooks, that is, and his wife Jackie, who is here with us just as well. Thank you guys so very much for being here with us. Want to say hey to President Kerry Steele, that is. Hey, Kerry, how are you? And to Alderman Pat Dow, who is here with us just as well. Want to say hey to Bonnie Schmetley, who is here. Hey, Sister Bonnie. She says, good evening to everyone. Well, our question came up last week. Oh, and Jackie Robinson Ivy is here just as well. I see you, Jackie. Hey, how are you? Jackie says, I am here. So, with that being said, last week we talked about the importance. We wanted to make sure that we shared with our constituents the importance of organ and tissue donation from people of color. We talked about people of color being parts of trials and wanted to make sure that we shared that with you just as well. And we're going to kind of take a deep dive into what actually is a medical trial. And we know some of our doctors will explain that to you. But before we even get into medical trials, the information about blood donation and how important it is. Why don't you take us there, Shelley, and begin that story?
Hi, thank you, Nikki. Of course. So, blood donation is utterly important. Most of us know someone who has suffered from cancer or, suffers from sickle cell disease. And these are just a couple of disorders or diseases that really does benefit, or part of treatment is a blood transfusion. And so, background on Versity. Versity Blood Center is the fifth largest independent blood center in the country. We are located across 5 states, 501(c)(3). And one of the things I'm very proud about with the organization is that we have a huge focus on our community of color and community at large, where the blood that we collect, we make sure it stays in our community, kind of like the airplane, right? Where it says, put your mask on first. Blood that we collect, we keep it in our local footprint, and that is across our 5 states. And we really do make sure that when people come out to donate blood, that they are helping to put blood on the shelves in their community to help their families, to help their neighbors, their community at large. And so, as we all know, we're just closing out Sickle Cell Awareness Month. However, sickle cell is our sickle cell warriors are managing this care 24/7, right? And so, what I like to get across to our community is that 1 in 13 babies, African American babies, are typically born with the trait. 1 in 365 African American people are born with the disease. One of our best ways to treat with the beyond pain medication is blood transfusions. But it's very hard for some sickle cell patients because they get a lot of antigens, a lot of antibodies that become part of that due to those transfusions. And a way to help our sickle cell patients best is that if we are able to diversify our blood supply more, meaning that people of color need to roll up their sleeves. There is a call to action to be able to support our community and make an impact in the well-being of our loved ones, and in this case specifically, sickle cell. And so, just 44% of African Americans have an antigen, and I'm not the scientist or the doctor, but we have an antigen on the blood called RO, and that particular antigen will help the sickle cell patients really receive that blood without an adverse reaction. And so Versity Blood Center, along with others, but definitely we are focused on trying to make sure that we enhance our rare donor program, where when we find blood donors who do have this RO, that we take that, it's kind of earmarked for our sickle cell patients right here at home. And if there is a crisis that is needed someplace else, we're ready to support there as well. But we can't do it without our communities of color. We need everybody to understand that this is a call to action of how we help all people have better outcomes. And it's as simple as, reading some information, answering some questions. You bring in your ID, you roll up your sleeve, and it's anywhere between 5 to 8 minutes for the actual donation and maybe 30 to 45 minutes for the entire process. And in that, you are able to save 3 lives. You will impact 3 lives by donating 1 pint of blood. And everyone says, oh, it's the needle. I'm afraid of needles. I got diabetes. I got high blood pressure. No one likes the stick of the needle, but it is what we're left with in order to uh, pull the blood, right? To draw the blood and or transfuse it. And so I usually like to say babies with cancer don't like the needles either. Sickle cell patients that are constantly getting transfusions don't like the needle either. And by the grace of God, you can be able to make a difference just for that initial pinch, right? Most people are tattooed up, and that's much worse than actually having a little needle prick where you're actually drawing blood that is going to be given to someone else to sustain their life and give them more time with their family.
Outstanding. Well, Yvette Jarrett says hello, but she has a question. She says, can you donate blood if you are a diabetic?
You can, as long as it is under control. So you can be insulin dependent as well. As long as you're taking your medication and you're under control, you can donate blood.
Let me just thank you about the sickle cell. I couldn't let the time go by without informing us that I am known in Congress as Mr. Sickle Cell. And 2 of my sickle cell initiatives, one was actually passed in the House last week, reauthorization of my sickle cell bill. Myself and a fellow named Dr. Burgess, who's a Caucasian Republican fellow from Texas, we co-chair the sickle cell caucus, and we not only passed that bill out of the House, and of course, it means we're going to have money and stuff like that, but we really started doing sickle cell in Congress way back when Senator Jim Talent and I got a bill passed in 2004. And also, I will mention that Chicago has been an epic center for the focus put on sickle cell. Back in the late 1960s and early 70s to mid 70s, Valerie Jarrett's doctor, Dr. James Bowman, was the sickle cell expert out at the University of Chicago. And Dr. Maurice Rabb was the expert at the University of Illinois, right down the street. And so they, in our city, were 2 of the pioneers. And last week, I actually made a presentation at the Department of Health and Human Services acknowledging the work of 2 outstanding Black physicians, Dr. Reed and Dr. Gaston, who at one time was the head of HRSA and also a vice admiral in the Public Health Service. They were pioneer researchers in sickle cell, and we honored both of them last week, both African American physicians at the Department of Health and Human Services. So, Ms. Mitchell, thank you and your company. And we believe that we actually have a cure for sickle cell anemia. We actually have a cure. And the only problem with it, it would cost more than $1 million in treatment for a person, but I know we're going to be talking about clinical trials. But the people who have gone through the clinical trials that brought us to the point where we think we have a cure, they talk so glowingly about what it has done for them. And even though it costs a lot of money to treat, we're trying to get that cost down. But I tell you, they talk so glowingly about it that I'd be willing to spend the money anyway if it was my money to spend, because they say it has totally changed their lives. So thank you for the work with blood and blood collection and transfusion. It makes a lot of difference.
Thank you, Congressman.
Want to say hey to Elder Jean Thomas, who is here, to Sharon Lester, who is here with us just as well, to Makita Wakefield, who is here with us, to Mimi Brayboy, who is here with us just as well. Hey, Yusuf Jackson, I see you there. How are you? To Adrian Dillard, who is here with us, to Selena Smith and Jack Lynch, who's here with us, to Cassandra Reed, who is here with us. Hey, Kimberly Jackson, who is here with us just as well. And Dr. Vera Bonds and her husband says we had to stop by on our 52nd year anniversary because we don't miss couch conversations at all. So thank you so very much. Want to say hey to Trina Johnson, who is here. Hey, Trina, hello. And I got your message and I got something for you. I'll take care of it. Just haven't had a chance to get back to you. To Catherine Jones, who is here, she says, yes, yes, yes. It runs in my family. Great conversation. Audrey J. Cox is here with us. She says, good evening to everyone. Dorothy Murphy is here. She says, thank you so much, Congressman, for your leadership in this. Lost my oldest sister at age 51 to sickle cell disease. Now we have a question that says, how many pints of blood does the body have? And if I give up one, does that harm me in any way? And then they have a part B. How long does it take for me to repair? I don't think you're harmed, but you guys go ahead.
So no, it doesn't. You have anywhere between 8 to 12, depending on body size, height, and weight. And so giving up 1 pint does not harm you at all. Your body is always replenishing. And really what we do is even before you leave, we start to give you fluids. We give you something to eat and something to drink. And then we ask you to continue to hydrate yourself and eat and drink well over the next few days. You actually lose a pound roughly. And so you get to eat extra and drink extra in order to, when you donate, to help you feel really good behind that. And so the time period, I'll speak to it and I'll break it up. So there is a questionnaire that you have to complete. And then there is a mini physical that you have to complete. And then it's the actual blood draw. And the blood draw itself is anywhere between 5 to 8, 10 minutes. And then the rest, another 20, 30 minutes or so, is the process, right? Answering the questions, making sure that it's safe and healthy for you to donate, as well as for the recipient that may receive your unit of blood.
Is there an age that they recommend you stop contributing that?
Nope, we have no upper limit as long as you're in good health. That's part of our community, though. We're aging out. So we're making a really big plea as well for our high schools and colleges, wanting to make sure that we can get the youth involved in this mission of saving lives and exposing them to the importance and the difference that they could make. So, Dr. Graham, did you have a question or you want to add something to it?
I just want to know, is there a limit in terms of either how many times somebody can donate in a year or over a period of time?
Great question. You can donate every 56 days. So every 2 months, you can donate. Your body starts, as I said, replenishing right away. So yes, you can donate every 56 days and be perfectly healthy and fine. Thank you.
Okay, outstanding. Simply fantastic information. We have, I'm so sorry. We have another quick question. And this question is actually to Dr. Pete. Dr. Pete, Trevor wants to know, can you explain what's the difference between a blood draw or donating platelets, or is it the same thing?
Yeah, well, one encompasses the other. In order to donate platelets, that does require that we draw your blood. The difference is we're drawing a specific type of blood cell. So your blood cells are divided into white blood cells, red blood cells, and platelets. And so we draw your blood and then isolate just the platelets that we need for that particular blood draw. But yes, blood draw is like a procedure, and the donation of the specific type of blood cell is the platelets.
So what's so important about platelets? What do they do that other elements of the blood don't do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, but platelets are responsible for clotting. So when you cut yourself or you're bleeding, the platelets' primary responsibility is to clot the blood. The platelets are supposed to run from 150,000 to 450,000. And in general, if you run low, I mean, really low, anywhere between 40 to 50,000 is when you have trouble in terms of spontaneous bleeding. But sometimes people can run as low as 100,000, 120,000 and still function very normally and don't bleed spontaneously at all. So platelets are important for clotting purposes. Now, some people have a disorder where their platelets run too high, and those people have a predisposition to clot. Their blood clots inappropriately. So yes, you want your blood to clot if you're cut, right? But you don't want your blood clotting just for no apparent reason, and that can set you up for what we call DVTs or pulmonary embolisms and things like that. So platelets are responsible for clotting, and typically platelets replace themselves. I can't remember exactly.
24 hours.
Huh?
Take overnight.
Overnight. Okay. Yeah. So yeah. So yeah, that's the primary responsibility of platelets.
Yeah, I've got a question for Shelley.
Mm-hmm.
How many individuals can benefit from one donation of blood?
3 people. You can save 3 lives with one blood donation, just like Dr. Pete called out that there are different components of the blood, and you can separate them out to go to different concerns, different patients. Like I talked about cancer and then sickle cell, and then there's moms that are having babies. There's all types of planned and unplanned needs and uses for blood. And so, the job is to make sure you're giving that patient exactly what they need.
So when you draw the blood, you have the ability to actually one donation of blood can actually be used for 3 different people.
Correct. Yes. Great question. Thank you.
Pastor Crystal Kyles is here with us. Hey, Pastor Kyles, how are you? Glad that you are here with us on this evening. She says, or she asked the question, how long does it last?
Blood? She's asking how long does it last? Yeah, blood has a shelf life of 42 days, but it does not expire. It is used almost immediately. Once it is tested, which is part of our process, Blood Versity does all of that, from collection to storage, to processing, to testing, to delivery, to the hospital, to transfusion. And so it has a 42-day shelf life, but it does not expire because there's such a great need for it. Every 2 seconds, someone needs blood. That's how great that need is.
Oh, wow. Every 42 seconds?
No, every 2 seconds.
Every 2 seconds. Someone needs blood.
Correct.
Oh, wow. Well, with that being said, we want to make sure that you are aware that city colleges, along with Malcolm X and our office, the office of Congressman Danny K. Davis, will be doing a blood drive on November 20th at Malcolm X. So you have time to sign up. We will be giving out that information just as well for you guys to sign up and Meet us over at Malcolm X so you can donate, because every 2 seconds someone needs some blood. Well, we have an anonymous question from someone who says, "Hey, Dr. Miller, you were my doctor." Well, you really still are. I remember when I had to have a blood transfusion and plasma. I really don't know what the difference is. Can someone share that? But I want to thank Dr. Miller, because before I would never donate, but after I found out how important it was and that I needed it, I had to donate to save someone else's life. That is simply outstanding. Well, Dr. Miller, what's the difference?
Yeah, so as it has been mentioned before, there are many different elements in our blood. The blood cells, red blood cells, white cells, as well as platelets, and then there's plasma, which contain also um, uh, elements that is also necessary. Plasma oftentimes may be used. Let's say someone is bleeding and they're having an issue with a clotting issue. This should be, people who have hemophiliacs, have issues with bleeding sometimes, and so sometimes, in addition to treating the deficiency that they have, giving them transfusing them plasma, it helps to stop the bleeding. And it's so important. I mean, as we're beginning to talk, I think there's an obviously they pointed out the important needs for blood. And one of the big things that we seem to be facing a lot of time in our community is that people have some of the wrong information about what it means to donate blood, and if it's harmful to them, and all these kinds of things, because there's a lot of different elements that have gone out, and things have been talked about the problem with blood. And blood is now very safe to receive blood. That we want to make certain that people understand that it's safe to receive blood, and the blood is tested to see if it has anything that may be harmful to you. It also is tested to make certain that you're not being infected with some kind of that another person may have. So blood is safe to receive, and it's not going to be given to you unless you really need it. So that's an important thing. But the other important thing on the other end of it is that in order for you and everybody who needs blood to receive it, it is important that they're donors, that people are donating. And it is not, there's nothing that's going to come of the situation that is going to be harmful to you. Shelley talked about that you get a needle stick, which is the same thing when you go and get a blood test done. You get the same kind of stick as you would if you were having a blood test. And so that little discomfort occurs when the needle pierces the skin, and then it pretty much goes away. And so it's important. It's so important, though, that we meet the needs, that we have the donors. And if you're healthy and you don't have any contraindication and you're not infected, it is so important that you step up and help save lives. I mean, as she mentioned, that somebody needs blood every 2 seconds. So that means there's a lot of need, and that means that we need a lot of donors. And being a donor, you don't have to. You can donate every 2 months. So that's 6 times a year. So it's important that people be willing to step up and to donate, and to because that is what saves lives. It saves suffering and pain in our sickle cell population. These are very difficult situations that are life-threatening, as well as obviously when someone is involved in an accident or someone has surgery and they're in need of blood. These are life-threatening situations. And so the only way that we can address that and help these individuals and save lives is that that those of us that are healthy and able, that we donate blood so that it'll be available. And being a donor is the blood that you have is important to you, but it's also important you have some extra. So it's important that you share your blessing, and it's not that you're going to give away something that you can't replenish. You're able to replenish it. And so that's important. We want to make certain that our communities understand that, and that when their blood drive, please register and go and donate, because these are such important things that's needed in the community, and you hold the key. You are the key. So be a donor.
Yeah, well said, Dr. Miller. There is no substitute for blood. I just wanted to add that. It is not manufactured anyplace else but in the human body. So that's the only way that we can get it. And it's just important to put those fears to the side and roll up your sleeve and answer this call to action in our community.
Yeah, I would argue that a lot of people aren't afraid; they're just reluctant to donate. And I took a quick look, and it says 3% of the eligible donor population actually donates. So that means there's 97% of the donor population that don't donate. So even if 10%, 15 or 20% chose to donate, it would make a significant difference moving forward.
Absolutely.
We just had a blood drive the other day over at the Northwest Austin Council with the American Red Cross, and we've got others that are planned. Bishop Brown, let me ask you, how can the church or the faith community in particular help us in this process? We just heard we don't have enough donors. People don't understand enough about it. So how can the faith community especially play a role?
Well, I'm mighty glad you asked, Congressman Davis. I think the biggest issue since the faith community, our congregations, our local churches, are usually these individuals who suffer from the need of having to use platelets, red blood cells, white blood cells. They're the ones that's going back and forth to the doctors. We're the ones that have those sickle cell anemia, those sickle cell issues, those traits. What has to happen is we have to go back to education. Education is critical. The Bible said, "In all you're getting, get an understanding." And in order to get the push you need from the faith community, or get the reception that you need from the faith-based community, we have to go back to telling our people why we need to donate blood. Dispel all of the rumors and all of the myths. Thank you, Dr. Miller, for helping to explain, because many times people are afraid because they hear the horror stories. You know, people getting, my uncle got about some bad blood or this and that. And the medical community has come so far from where it used to be, and still is advancing. But a lot of people are stuck in the past of hearing what grandmama and great grandmama and them said, and don't understand that the Bible even said that life is in the blood. And so you have to go back to educating the church. And Sunday morning is not always prime time, but it's good. But if we can get to the faith-based community on a consistent basis and expound on how we can get our local churches to have these blood drives and give these blood drives and have these blood donations, I believe it will help get us where we need to be to move that needle from 3% to 5 to possibly 7, and even maybe, yes, Mr. Harrington, to that 10%. But it takes a consistent conversation to get this ball moving.
Well, I thank you, because I must admit that Reverend Steve Richardson is my absolute hero in this respect. I go to a lot of churches for a lot of different things, but I go to Jordan Temple when I know they're going to have transplant day. Reverend Richardson has had 2 heart transplants and a kidney transplant. And he has Transplant Sunday. Now, if you ever want to hear a bunch of folks shouting and testifying, if you want to hear some testimonies, go to Jordan Temple on Transplant Sunday. Individuals who have given organs, individuals who have received organs, and what that really means. You go there, you think of Baptist Church as a Church of God in Christ church, but we're really coming a long way. I mean, all of this stuff is relevant. I mean, it's absolutely relevant. And you got to know that we sometimes have progress. For example, I wanted to jump and shout when I heard this week that infant mortality was down, even if it's only a nudge, an inch in our community. I also heard a report that opioid deaths, overdoses is down, that it's actually decreased a little bit and it's going down. Well, the only reason these situations are going down is because of the tremendous work that the health community, the health providers, and all of those who are involved are, in fact, joining together to do the work and spread the word. And I can tell you, knowing that infant mortality in this community where I'm sitting right now was as high as it was anywhere in civilized world when we started doing this work. And of course, infant mortality simply measures one measure of quality of life status. If it's low, it means you're doing all right. If it's high, you're in bad shape. And to know that it has actually gone down, DOWN, that's enough to make you jump and shout. If you understand this business, you know that something is actually happening.
Absolutely. Well, Pastor Marvin Wiley says he wanted to make sure that you knew I'm ahead of the game. And he had his member, Audrey Jaycox, put all the information in the chat, which says, and she put it in, Pastor Wiley, before you could even text me and tell me. Blood Drive, 10-4, 1 to 6 p.m. at Rock of Ages Baptist Church in the T.H. Wade Center, 14th and Madison Street in Maywood. That is in the 7th Congressional District. So make sure that you go by on 10-4. That is what?
Friday.
This weekend. It's Friday.
Yep.
Friday at Rock of Ages at the T.H. Wade Center. That's right across the street. And you can donate blood right there. Well, you know, Bishop Brown, here's how we end up having church before the program is over. Dr. Miller started it when he said that you was blessed with some blood and that you need to give a blessing so you can be blessed. So I just wanted to make sure, isn't that scripture Luke 6:38, where it says that your blessings will be pressed down, shaken together, and overflowing? Is that it? Am I in the right vicinity when I give you that?
You're in the right vicinity. You're in the right vicinity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Well, Dr. Pete, we were waiting on two other physicians to get here with us, who one is seeing patients and the other one is in surgery. And he did text and say he was running behind. But we wanted to talk about really quickly that whole correlation with the blood. But how important is it for people of color to be a part of clinical trials? Can you share that with us?
Yeah, Nikki, this is something that cannot be under, or I should say overstated. It's important that we, as a diverse community, Black and Brown people, participate in these research trials, because what we need to know is just that part of feeling confident that that the newer therapies are just as efficient and they work as well, and that they don't have any adverse side effects, is to have us, a diverse group of people, in these trials. And I can tell you that the confidence um, that providers will have as a result of having these trials. And that's one of the first questions I ask when someone comes up with a novel treatment or intervention for something. I want to know, well, where's the data, and the data to support what you're saying is that this medication is superior to the other medication. And then, of course, the data, is it representative of the patient population that I treat? And so I might say, this is fantastic data. It does show that it worked. Now, what percent of the people that in this trial looked like the patient population that I serve? So that's why it's so important, Nikki. That's a great question. And I can tell you that many people, maybe because of the Tuskegee experiment, maybe not, just feel a sense
The
of,
experiment happened in Tuskegee. It was not an experiment by Tuskegee. We need to make that clear. That was where it took place. Those
yes,
are not the people. It,
yes,
it was a
yes.
federal government study.
Yes, we are not knocking the folks from Alabama. We love Alabama, and roll tide. Alabama won the other night. They put it off against the Bulldogs. So, uh, but and that was a heck of a game. Now we love Alabama.
Mean you got to go for them Southern schools winning all the football games.
But now, personally, my daughter goes to LSU, so I gotta roll with LSU. Although I went to an HBCU, so I really don't have a dog in this fight. But yes, Joe's absolutely right. This was not a Tuskegee sponsored study. That they studied the natural history of syphilis. The real tragedy in this was, one, it was a government sponsored study, a United States government sponsored study, and two, it was a violation of trust, right? So we were not told the truth about the study, that some people were getting a placebo and other people were getting actual treatment, and they wanted to watch to see how would syphilis destroy the body. And that was the real tragedy of it. And I think they were even given some compensation for it, but it just did not compute. So it was a sense of violation of trust of the medical community versus the audience. Now, I have patients all the time who have no idea about the Tuskegee experiment or the study that was sponsored in the state of Alabama, but they just sense that somebody's not telling them the complete truth. And in there lies the need for a diverse workforce, a medical workforce, doctors and nurses that look like us, that can tell us the truth. And it's not that somebody who doesn't look like us won't tell us the truth, but it's a sense that I can trust that you don't have a dog in this fight, that there's not somebody that's paying you to get me into this study. The reality is we need diverse people in these studies to show that this medication X work just as good in these group of folks as they do in this group of folks. So that's why that's important. It's a great question.
Yeah,
And I
let me
think,
just
you know, played such an important role in the overall development. When I was a little boy, my dad knew about Booker T. Washington. He never even went to school. He knew about Booker Washington.
Mm-hmm.
He knew about George Washington Carver. He understood, or they talked about, how these two black guys were so profound in black life. George Washington Carver taught them how to make use of their land that had stopped producing. The way my family got to Arkansas, they migrated from Alabama because the land in Alabama where they farmed stopped producing, wouldn't grow nothing.
Mhm.
George Washington Carver taught them how to make it grow, how to do that. Booker Washington was the leading black person in the United States of America during that time. Cast down your bucket where you at. See what you can do yourself. And so Tuskegee has played just an enormous role in black life in this country. And I think we've been so fortunate to have it and so fortunate that it still exists and still teaching and training our people.
Yeah.
Well,
I
Miss,
just wanted to say that
go
despite the fact that the a lot of things have been cleared up in terms of what happened, and hopefully there have been things that have been put into place to prevent these people from being mistreated during a trial. However, the mystique still exists, and there are a lot of folks still, still concerned that they may just be that they just may be a puppet, and they don't want to play that role. They don't want to be in that role, and so it's important that we educate and that we make certain that people, Dr. Pete was saying that it's important that people see people that look like them that they can trust. Trust is the factor. When people don't trust, then they're not going to allow somebody to have control over them doing things that they don't understand. So building that trust, and part of building that trust is also working with people that you do trust to bridge these gaps and to help to get you over and get you beyond the fences that are just there saying that this ain't gonna be right for me, and so a lot of education is needed, but the big thing is that trust is you can't just educate people to trust. Trust comes when people see things that are happening and see people that they feel are concerned about them being in control and being in charge, and also helping to explain to them and watching over them. And that trust is so important when we talk about even the blood transfusion. A lot has to do with people trusting. And Reverend Brown was speaking of the faith-based community. It is so important that the blood drives are great, but we have an ongoing dialogue with our parishioners about the need for them to be donors, because there's certainly going to be a lot of folks that are going to church that need to have the donation, have blood donated. So if we want to help our sisters and brothers, we got to make certain that we are doing the things that are necessary to help them. As was pointed out, that there's no machine that can make blood. It takes a person, and so we can't use blood from other animals. So we have to produce the blood for people. But trust, we have to do whatever we can to create and to bring about a high level of trust for the people of our community, because of things. It isn't all just things related to healthcare. They're just things that have happened in the lives of people that make them not trust those that are in authority.
If it
Yeah,
wasn't
I want to say something real quick about trust. That
if it
I
wasn't
think that's one of the purposes of this program. That
Mhm.
these are people that look like the people that are listening and watching this program, and hopefully we engender some kind of trust, and they're listening to what we're saying, and they will believe what we're saying, because we're not the type of people to let our own people down.
Right.
in spite of saying this, there are so many people who don't understand it and go everywhere else thinking that the ice is colder, or believing that the technology is greater, or believing that a different people tell me when they need lawyers that they will seek out certain color lawyers because they believe that they have a better chance of getting the court to respond in their favor if the lawyer is somebody other than a black guy. This is not TV. I ain't joking. I'm this ain't something I read. This is not something I heard. These are experiences that I have had and continue to have. And I feel kind of sometimes uncertain asking them, why, why did you, especially with medical malpractice suits, for some reason, I don't know. But the
But I
truth is,
believe,
and the light is salvation, so I've been told.
I believe that it's going to take again um, having those conversations, like Dr. Pete said, when we're talking about trials, clinical trials, and things of that nature. It's going to take that conversation going back to making the church exactly what it was and what it should be as the focal point of the community. This is what's happening. We have to start back telling the church, not just on Sunday morning, not just on special occasions, but on a consistent basis. This is what is going on. This is what we need to do in our community. This is the needs that we are having. How many of our children are ended up in hospitals and trauma situations that require blood or that require organs, that require certain treatments that might even be trial, not even be fully tested by the FAA or might not be fully, but it's a trial. But we will risk it on a trial. But sometimes you have to go back and start having that hard conversation, saying this is what we need to do. This is what you need to know. This is what was coming up the track. I'll give you my own case in point during the worst pandemic that we've seen in 100 years. Everybody talked about, oh, I'm not taking the COVID shot. I'm not taking the COVID shot. They came up with it too fast. And how do I know it worked? And my statement to them was, you have the whole medical community globally working on this pandemic. So when you have people who are coming together, collaborating and bringing these things together, what they know, what they don't know, answering the who's, the what's, the why's, the how's, and then coming up with a vaccine. And why would you take the shot? I would rather risk it because I know it's a good possibility that it's going to work. But we have to change their mentality in terms of being able to have that trust, like Dr. Miller says, in our medical community, have that trust, not just in the medical community, but in our political community, knowing that they have our full best interest at heart. So when we having these conversations on a frequent basis, not just on the spur of the moment, but on the frequent basis, that's where the trust builds. That's where it starts. I'm seeing you. If I'm seeing you every third Sunday or every third Wednesday, I'm seeing you and you're talking the same thing. I can start listening to you, because now not only am I going to listen to you, but I'm going to go home and tell my children, hey, listen, I'm talking to Dr. Miller. Dr. Miller said, this is going on. This is going on. You need to go take a look at this. And it builds the trust. And that's where the trust comes from.
Wow, the trust. That is outstanding. Well, Shelly, got just a couple more questions for you. These are going to be our last two questions of the evening because I know you guys hate when I say our time is drawing near. So, Shelly, if you could just repeat what's the preferred age for donation? Because Sandell Scott, I think she missed some of it and she does have that question. What is the preferred age for donation, the youngest? And
The
then the
youngest,
old.
sorry, go ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
The youngest can be 16 with a parent's permission and 17 on their own. And there is no upper limit as long as you meet the qualifications of the questions and are in good health.
Also, can you kind of explain what is a direct donor?
So a directed donor is prescribed. That's a prescription where a patient may say, I need my cousin, my sister, my whomever to donate for me. And that has to go through a doctor who will then write a prescription, if you will, and bring that into the blood center. And then we will draw that person, that designated or directed person. We will draw them, and under the prescription of the doctor, we will get that unit to the hospital where that patient is going to be, and that blood is only transfused to that person. But they have to
So,
meet the qualifications the same as any other donor.
so understand that there's many ways that you can donate, and don't hesitate not to want to say hey to Chief Valdemir Talley, who is here with us. And he says, very good point, Bishop. Trust has to be built. And you are absolutely right. And pal, who is that? Is that Pastor Cy Fields jumping in with us? It sure is Pastor Cy Fields jumping in with us just as we are saying our goodbye. So I know you guys hate to hear me say this. I know you guys hate to hear it, but it's our time. So I want to remind you of just a few things really quickly before you go. Just a few things. One, don't forget this weekend, this Friday, blood drive at Rock of Ages at the T.H. Wade Center on 14th and Madison. I think if I did not say that again, that my phone was going to break from all the Rock of Agians who keep texting me saying, don't forget our announcement. We're not going to forget it. There it is. Don't forget Rock of Ages on Friday from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. Then don't forget our office along with City Colleges on November 20th at Malcolm X. Don't forget to stop by there just as well. And you can donate there just as well. Don't forget all the information we gave you tonight about blood donation and about clinical trials, which is so important. Please don't forget that. And if you want to go with our office on our little trip on October 5th, call the office so you can get that information. Don't forget to do it. He says, go Maywood. That's right. Now they're putting up go Maywood. Go 7th Congressional District. There you are. There you are. Well, Doug, what's your until next Monday?
Well, I would like to talk a little bit more about clinical trials. And if you're interested, find out who's a sponsor. Does it come from the NIH, or does it come from the drug company or the manufacturer? And check out the site. Is this being done in an office or an institution like a university? And the final thing is, there should be a supervisory body, like an institution review board, that looks at this to see whether or not this clinical trial is designed right to ask questions and avoids as many harms as possible. So consider the sponsor, the site, and the supervision.
All right, so Doug says, remember the sponsor, the site, and the supervision. Don't forget those clinical trials, how important they are. Well, Dr. Miller, what's your until next Monday?
Again, I just want to remind everybody that we are a village, and we are important to each other. And being important to each other, that means that we are our brothers' keepers, and our brothers need us. And we need to make certain that if we are able, that we do that keeping, we do that mentoring, that we do whatever is necessary to help our brothers to be healthy, to be prosperous, and to have a good life.
Outstanding. So Doug reminded us of clinical trials. Dr. Miller said, don't forget that you are your brother's keeper. Well, Joe, what's your until next Monday?
I've got two, and one is related to something that Dr. Miller said, but I'll start with this. If you're not at the table, you may be on the menu. Remember that. You need people. We need people like us at the table when these decisions are being made, because if we're not at the table, we could possibly wind up on the menu. The other thing, and it really picks up on what Dr. Miller said, and it occurred to me: if we're not going to help each other, who is?
Well, that if Pete was here, we would be snapping our fingers right now because that was deep. That was deep. All right, so I got you. Well, Bishop Brown, Doug says clinical trials. Dr. Miller says, don't forget that you're your brother's keeper. Joe reminded us that you may be at the table, you might be on the menu, but basically you might not get picked. What's your until next Monday?
My until next Monday, it simply comes from 3 John chapter number 2. He said, "Beloved, I wish above all things that thou would prosper and be in good health, even as thy soul prosper." So if God wants your soul to prosper, he also wants you to be in good health. He wants you to be prosperous as well.
Well, that's the book now. The book told us in John to be prosperous and have good health. That's what I'm talking about. That's how we end up at the pulpit. That's how we end up there. Well, Shelly, you're until next Monday.
Nikki, my until next Monday is, if not us, then who? Take the time to raise up your sleeves and save a life. And you can do that. Heed this call to action. Go to Versity, VERSTI.org/Illinois, and it will give you blood drives in your community, in your area. And we also have 13 locations here in Illinois.
And I also want to share one quick thing about Versity just as well. A lot of our safety net hospitals only have one sole proprietor of their blood products. And Versity is actually the sole proprietor for a couple of our safety net hospitals. Just to name a few, Loretta Hospital and St. Anthony Hospital. They're their sole provider. So remember, if by any chance you end up in one of those places, let's make sure they have everything that they need. And she was profound, right along with everyone else tonight, from talking about the trials to being my brother's keeper, to making sure that you're on the menu and you get picked, to the word where it says 3 John to prosperous and good health. But she gave you a charge. If not us, then who? What's your call to action? Well, Pastor Si, I know you came in late because you was having 703 prayer on Facebook. But what's your until next Monday? You know how this goes.
Yeah, well, until next Monday, first of all, good evening and blessings to everyone. Until next Monday, keep hope alive. Keep hope alive and fight the good fight of faith. If we keep hope alive and keep fighting the good fight of faith, we can make it and we can come out victorious.
That's what I like, victory. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Well, Congressman, take us home.
Well, faith is so profound until people been calling me up, making reservations for the presidential inauguration. And I say, how do you know you're going to want to go? And they say, my faith tells me so, meaning that my faith tells me that the person that I'm going to want to go and be with is going to be there. And if they ain't there, then I don't want to be there. I won't be worried about going. But I want to thank all of our panelists. And, I just love some of the things that people do to keep history alive. When I hear the Rock of Ages is having a blood drive at the Wade Center, and that's because Reverend Wade was there and laid the foundation for my homeboy, Dr. Marvin Wilder. And if I had any blood to give, And any time on Friday, I would go out there and give some blood, even though I am a diabetic. And shall I say I could still do it. And I understand there's no age limit, so I still qualify. So if anybody out there that ain't got nothing to do on Friday, just go out there and give up a little blood. And giving blood is like the system that used to exist when they gave away warm fuzzies. There was a time when everybody had a warm fuzzy, and you could give a warm fuzzy to somebody else, and you never had to worry about giving out, because every time you gave one away, you'd get 2 or 3 back in its place, and everybody was happy. But there was an old droll around who wanted to give away something. He wanted to stop that. So he started giving away cold pricklies. Cold pricklies are not the same as warm fuzzies. Obviously, they cold and they prickly. So he started telling people a different story, kind of like Donald Trump. And he started telling people, say, you better be careful, because you're going to give away all of your warm fuzzies and you ain't going to have none. Even though everybody knew that you could never run out, because whenever you gave one away, you got another one back. And so people started exchanging, give me a warm fuzzy and I'll give you a red shirt. Or I'll give you a baseball cap. Lo and behold, they started getting sick. They started dying. And they started fighting over these things, and all those things happened. But this has been such a great discussion. Even if I wasn't around in office, I'd probably be listening if somebody had it going. Or I'd be on the panel myself. Somebody asked me the other day, say, if President Kamala Harris offered you a chance to come work in Washington, would you go? I said, you kidding? I say, nothing could make me leave the west side of Chicago where I live and have so much fun interacting with all these people and people from all over who get on and have these discussions and keep hope alive. Jesse, Jonathan Jackson and I were meeting with a group of people last Saturday, and we had so much fun doing what we do, understanding that we have in our hands right now. Growing up, I had a friend named Hayward Davidson. And Hayward and I thought we were, kind of smart little boys. We create something. And there was a fellow in our town named Uncle Joe, who was the smartest man in that area. And so we figured if we could ask Uncle Joe a question that he could not answer, then everybody would know we were smart. So we ran up to Uncle Joe and we had a little mockingbird in our hand. And we says, Uncle Joe, can we ask you something? He said, yeah, little boys, what y'all? I said, can we ask you a question? He said, yeah, go ahead. We said, Uncle Joe, I got something in my hand. Can you tell me what it is? So he looked at us and said, little boys, in your hand is a mockingbird. Then we kind of hunched each other and laughed. We got it now. Because we're going to ask him, is he dead or alive? And so we said, now, Uncle Joe, if Uncle Joe say he was dead, we was going to open our hands and let it fly away, prove that he was wrong. If he said that he was alive, we was going to crush it and kill it and prove that we was wrong. So we showed him our hand, say, you're right, it is a mockingbird, but is he alive or is he dead? So Uncle Joe started to answer, then he took a little chew on his pipe. He said, little boy, the answer to that is in your hand. And so the answer to many of these questions that we ask and much of the hope that we have tomorrow, guess what? The answer to those questions are in our hands. So thank you all for providing the answers, for providing the stimulus, providing the stimulation. And I got a feeling, I really do, that before the end of next month, we are going to be as jubilant as we can be because we know the answers is in our hands. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful night. And until next Monday, I hope to see you the Monday afterwards. Thank you all. Have a good night. Thank you, Nikki. We'll
Congressman, let me add, Congressman, I want to add one quick thing. So I know you brought up faith, and I know you talked about the people who called you on faith, and I know that we are a bunch of faith believers here on this evening. And pastors, if I'm wrong, please correct me, but I believe it's James 2:26 that talks about faith without works is dead. Now I want to share with you, I shared a little earlier if you wanted to join us to give our office a call. One thing I can say about Congressman Danny K. Davis is he is a man of faith, but his faith is always working. So he is working for us on October 5th, and he wants you to join us. Our faith is working, and we're going to make sure that it is not asleep. So join us, give our office a call, and we can give you all of those details. Congressman and Joe, if you can hang around for a second, that would be great. Everybody else, good night.
But on the 5th, we're actually going to Wisconsin. We are going, we have a bus load and a half already ready to go. We'd love to take a couple buses. Let me tell you, we take doctors too. We take nurses.